you ever had to compete for resources in the office? I mean, you're just trying to get the things that you need to do your job. But what if you're actually competing to keep your job? Or what if your life depended on getting these resources? When your life depends on getting resources, collaboration with competing parties can seem absurd. I mean, in times of crisis, worrying about gathering evidence or considering someone else's needs or improving communication often give way to fear, self-interest, and urgency. Yet, in the middle of the life and death droughts occurring in Chad now, our guest found ways to improve collaboration for millions globally. Hindou Oumarou Ibrahim is president of the Indigenous Peoples Association. Hindou left her beloved traditional life to travel the world, negotiating and speaking on behalf of Indigenous people and the environment. In this episode, Hindou shares how she used crisis to more equitably share resources by visualizing the problems, listening to those who were impacted, and creating detailed workable solutions. She is now building bridges between diverse communities from New York City to the pastoral lands of Africa. Hindou offers lessons for all of us, whether you're in the bush or the boardroom, about what it truly takes to work together when everything you live for is on the line, when collaboration is on the edge. Welcome, Hindou.
Firstly, thank you so much for having me in the Chief Executive discussions. I'm so honored to be with all of you there. Yeah, I am coming from Chad, and Chad is a number 4 biggest country in Africa. We are really in the center of Africa. We are a landlocked, and I am coming from a community that call it Mbororo. So Mbororo are a nomadic pastoralist peoples. We are a cattle herders, and normally, of course, before the colonization, we used to live in Chad, Cameroon, Nigeria, Central African Republic, and even Sudan. So we live across 5 to 6 countries. So my people are cattle herders. They are following the rain. So rain is everything for us. When the rain comes, we can get the grass, our cattle can eat, we can have our food, we can build our economy. And we are moving with the cattle to follow the green grass. That's why we are nomadic. And of course, it's not a hard work. It's not a hard life for the people who do not know the nomadic way of living. It is the fantastic way of living in harmony with nature. So the nature is the supermarket for us. So we get our food from it, we get our medicine from it, and then we protect this nature. So when you move with the cattle from one place to another one, your cow dung help to fertile the land that you left. So the way that you go after months and months and you come back to this place, you found the place become green again. So we are taking care of this nature to put the carbon in the soil to help the ecosystem to get regenerated in a natural way. And the ecosystem are giving us the food back. So that's how we are living in harmony with this nature. And at the same time, it is also a school for us. So as people go to the university to learn, so we go to our nature, to our environment to learn. That's how we develop a lot of traditional knowledge based on the way of living. For examples, as nomadic peoples, we do not have a shelter that is covering during the rainy season. It is not a fixed house. We have to move with everything that we have. So we have to understand the nature. So we are the best one to learn about the weather forecast. I used to say that in the Western world, people use the application to look at if it's going to rain, to take the umbrella, if it's going to be sunny, to have the sunglasses, or if it's going to be cold, to have the extra coat. But for us, the nature is our best applications. So my grandmother, my mother and all, they observe the cloud positions. They observe the birds' migrations. They observe the tree flowers. They observe the little ant. in the earth that moving, and that can help us to predict the weather. So if we wanted to see the rainy season, it's coming back, or it's going to be raining in the next couple of hours, we can just observe the wind directions. If the wind is coming from the north or south, if the wind is heavy or not. And then we combine that with the insect, we combine that with another biological informations, and it can help us to look at it's going to rain in the next 2 hours. There is no mistake because our life depends for all those traditional knowledge.
That is excellent. And we have a lot to learn from you. I'm curious, you said that you don't learn in traditional school, but you actually did go to a traditional school, right?
Right. So that's also one of the proudness that I'm taking. So I get a chance from my mother, who was who is still a very strong woman. And above her generations, she understood that sending her kids to the Western school can help them to build a bridge between the traditional way of living and the Western way of living. So I get the chance to go to school when like the kids are not going to school in my community, and not even the girls. And the reason was my mom come to live in the city, and then she have her neighbor that got sick. She went to the doctor. She have a medicine that she does not supposed to drink. She drank the medicine. She became even more sick. So my mom ran with her to the hospital, and the doctor was shouting on her. He said, like, you wanted to kill yourself. This medicine is not for drinking. Why you didn't read it, etc. And my mom gets shocked. She said, like, it can happen to me also. And then she decided that it will never happen to my girls. And she sent us to school. But it have been very complicated because she get rejected by her own family, my father family, saying you cannot send the kids to the Western school. They will be losing all our culture and our identity. And that was the moment she said, my kids can go to the Western school, but they can be also with all the traditional way of living. So I grew up going to school with the Western educations and going back to my community, doing all the milking, traveling with all the people, selling the milks around the communities. And it's helped me to be a bridge builders between the Western school and the traditional way of living.
Yes, you've been an extraordinary bridge. Um, how many languages do you speak right now?
So I do speak my first language, which is my mother tongue, Fulfulde. Uh, then I grow up with the kids playing in Arabic, and I went to the French school. And I learned English because I started to do the international negotiation on climate change, and I found that everyone speak English. That was 10 years ago. I didn't went to school to learn my English. That's why like I apologize for the rest of what I'm saying. So those are like my working languages, if I can say, but of course I can speak couple of the local languages at home. And then I get a scholarship on Indigenous Peoples' rights. So then I went to Dijon University for the Indigenous Peoples and International Law. And then I ended up mixing all these and using that for my work. And I figured out like doing a mapping, it's one of the best things to put together the science knowledge, technology, and traditional knowledge to build a map for the better adaptation and mitigations. So I didn't do one thing, I did so various things, but of course they are all very helpful for my life today.
You showed us a wonderful picture when we were on Necker Island of of your community working with the computers. Tell me a little bit about the problems that the people in Chad are facing and how the computers helped with that.
So Chad is a one of the most vulnerable countries vis-a-vis to the climate change and biodiversity loss. It is very sad, but in Chad we already reached 1.5 degree Celsius of the global warming. This is the objective of the Paris Agreement. We already reached that historically. So during the summer, it can get hot up to 50 degrees Celsius. And when you go to the desert, it's even more. So for the Fahrenheit, it's about 130 Fahrenheit. It's really a lot. And that make the water evaporate, and it's make the season change a lot. The rainy season, who's supposed to be from south to the north, 9 months to the 6 months, now is turning between maybe 6 in the south, maybe less, and in the north, maybe 1 to 2 months of rain. The rain turned to become more heavier with a lot of floods that we are not preparing, and there is no nature to absorb it, or there is not enough rain that everything dried up. And both of the crises of the extreme weather that we are facing will end up with the food insecurity. And that's why, like, when you look at the map of the food insecurity around the world, we are in the dark red. People are facing the food insecurity not because they are lazy, they are not doing agriculture, but because the nature is not giving the peoples enough what they need to grow up the food and to eat. That lead to the social conflict. It's create a conflict between the communities that fighting each other to get access to the fertile land or to the water point. And it's very sad because the peoples that live in harmony now turn it into enemy, fighting each other for their own survival. And those who couldn't fight, they become a refugee. There are a lot of climate refugee, climate displaced peoples, internally displaced between our regions, within other countries in Africa, and sadly, those who can cross the Mediterranean to join the Europe and die into the Mediterranean, or ending up homeless around all the European countries that are shouting because they are having some climate migrant in their homeland. But the reality on the ground is more sad than that. Millions of people that are displaced just because of the climate issues. So the reality on the ground is a lot. One of the concrete examples is around Lake Chad. So Lake Chad used to be 25,000 kilometers square of the fresh water. That only when my mom get born. When I get born, the lake lost his water to become 10,000. Right now, the lake is about 2 to 3,000 kilometers squares, depending from the rainy season. So 90% of the waters evaporated, gone. And between this lake, shared between Cameroon, Nigeria, and Chad, we have 40 million people living and depending from his fragile ecosystem. And that is the reason of the peoples fighting each other. And it is another reason to give a land to the terrorist groups like Boko Haram, who can come and take the opportunity of the poor peoples and run the terror for all the humanity. So yeah, the reality is very sad. But anyway, from these situations, as working on the climate change and protecting the environment, I have to use what I have to build a solution for my people. And as my people have a lot of traditional knowledge and is still nomadic, so they still have a lot of those knowledge. So I use the traditional knowledge of my communities, and I use satellite imageries, and of course, technical information through some software on the computers, as you said, to build a 2D or 3D participatory mapping. And building the map is the most exciting exercise when you can have all the communities coming together, man, woman, youth, and you open the map. Even the satellite map, it looks like nothing in the eyes of the communities. Like the data are very weak because community have a lot of data. than the satellite image. So they start putting all the water points during different seasons. They put the corridors of movement of animals. They put the different trees. They put all the traditional knowledge that they have. At the end of the day, you found a very rich and a live map that I take the photo and I digitalize the image and go back to the communities, build a convention between them on how they can better manage the natural resources, how they can better share the natural resources, and how they can restore their own ecosystem. And this is the best exercise to mitigate the conflict based on the natural resources.
It's fantastic. It's a true collaboration that you built. Did you find that along the way, trying to get people to use computer systems when they've been, knowledgeable in the nomadic ways, was there some resistance? Was there a difficulty getting them to do that?
So the community do not use the computers directly. I take the computers with all the data there. So then I show them the map. And then they help me to identify into the computers, even without going to school to learn computers. So they know exactly all the places in the computers that they showed me. So from that one, it's helped me to gather the first data, to go request for the satellite images, and then to come back to them to work on the mapping. And at the end, when we digitalize the map, it is also in the computers. So we gather with them, look at around the computers, all the information that we agree on it. When it is validated, so then I can print the map again and come back to them with a physical printed map.
I see. And then they can use that physically printed map to find the watering holes, the water that they need.
Correct.
That's excellent. Can you tell me a little bit about when there are scarce resources, typically people fight, and I think you found that. Were people willing to use the data instead of just fighting one another for it? If so, it sounds like your community has a tradition of being more collaborative. What tips do you have for the Western world on how to bring collaboration such as this forth?
Absolutely. So the last map that we did around Bongor, so we map over 2,500 kilometers square, and it is over 116 villages and then stopping points of the nomadic communities. And what I received just like a month ago, an information from them, all the community leaders come together. They reopen the corridor of movement that have been closed. They make a limit between the agriculture area, the nomadic area, the forests that are community forest areas. And then they open the way of how everyone can get access to the water, because water is life and everyone needs access to this water without getting into the conflict with each other. They did that themselves to resolve this conflict in a collaborative way. And it is the communities who do not speak the same language, who do not have the same life or livelihood, but through the mapping, they build this collaboration way. And to go further, so the community chiefs say the way that we work on the mapping, we saw the role of women, who is very important. But as traditionally, culturally, and officially, there is no land right for women, they decided as community chiefs to give a land right to women. It is the man who come up with the solutions for the women, and it is the man who can come up with the solutions also for the youth. So for the Western world, I think the best way of doing everything in each, it is to collaborate. In the Western culture, there is so divisions between the rich are here, their medium life, the poor peoples. So there is so many category. And at the end of the day, you cannot resolve the issue if you put a limit between a human being. You can be rich, you need food to eat. You can be poor, you need food to eat. You can be in the medium, you need food to eat. And at the same time, you need the water to drink. It is the same water. You need the air to breathe. Not because you are rich, when you go out from your car, you have a specific oxygen to come to your nose. You are in the street, you are breathing the same air that the homeless who is next to you who are breathing it. So we have so in common and we depend from each other. So to collaborate where you have to stop categorizing, you have to start working in collaboration where not in silo. How the rich peoples can give to the poor peoples what they need. How the poor peoples can increase their life and become a people who can live with the dignity, because that's what we need, the dignity as human being. That's what we need all together. So the Western culture can do a lot if they really break down these categorizations, live in harmony together, respect the nature, respect the human being as a person who have the blood, but not as category in the society that we are living today. Otherwise, we are not ending up with all what is happening. As climate change do not have a limit, our society must adapt.
That's brilliant. Climate change does not have the limits that we set in our societies. That's wonderful. I'm curious, were there any hardships that you faced? It sounds like you were talking to the chiefs, and because you came with such knowledge and you came with such uh, wisdom, they suddenly opened up the rights for women. But were there any roadblocks that you ran into, and how did you overcome those in getting that indigenous, rights for indigenous people, rights for the women to come forth?
Right. So growing up in a patriarchal society, it is very hard to make my way as woman. So being already woman, being young woman and indigenous woman, and who break all the culture going to the Western school, it's how been like very, hard to do what I did. But I started in an easy way. Being in my culture and in the protocol of my communities helped me a lot. I remember when I went to the communities, they say like, oh, the city girls, you come. And then I use this opportunity of being called the city girls. I go sit with the community chiefs, because women do not sit with the community chiefs. And then I say, I just like make myself ignorance coming from the city. I can sit with you as man. And then I start talking with them about all the climate issues. And then they found the discussion very interesting, and it is changing their life. And then I asked the man, you know what? I wanted to have a meeting with the woman. And then the next day, they did the work for me. They just like tell all their wife, all their doctors that, oh, Hindu is there. She wanted to meet you in that place. So I don't have to do the work. They do the work for me. And then for them, it's like I'm passing through them. They are the one who are taking the decisions. And then all the women meet. When I had my meeting, I finished my meeting. Next day, we went to the street, and then each man that I meet, they just look at me and then they laugh. They say like, "Oh, you come to do the revolution for our women's." I'm like, "What?" Because the women's went back home and saying like, "I have the rights. I must do this. I must do that, and I must help." So then that's how I started to have so that's how I started to have a serious discussions with the man and woman. So the first meeting also I remember, I have women meeting, sitting in like 200 meters there, and the man sitting in the other side, 200 meters far away. So I go talk to the man. I come back talk to the woman to tell you the distance that when I be in the middle and I speak, no one can hear because they are sitting far away. Culturally, they are not supposed to be together. So I did the first day meeting like that. The second day, I'm like, you know what? I am tired. Either you come closer and then I speak, you can listen from what I'm saying, but I cannot continuously doing that. And then they're like, oh, you are right. And then they come a little bit closer. And now, today, when I got back to those communities doing the meeting, women sit there, man sit there, and then women arguing with the man. And man asking the woman what they think. And then they're saying, like, I do not agree with what you said. So it's completely changed in so many communities from the time that I started to today, not only for myself, but for the women who are at the communities right now. So it's a big challenge, but if you work over this challenge, it can pay.
That's a phenomenal story of bringing them closer. I can just see that in my mind's eye. And that they had conflict, but they were able to honestly work that out. Until there is that conflict, you can't work out the issues. So that's phenomenal. You've been a bridge to the Western world. You've been a bridge within your own community. You truly are a great collaborator, Hindou, and it's been an honor to know you.
Thank you so much. It's also really a great pleasure knowing you and actually getting a platform where I can share what is happening and seeing how I can open more collaborations with the peoples. You know, one of the things is how the Western world can work with the indigenous peoples, because most of the time that what's happening, so the Western peoples wanted to come and they say they wanted to build the capacity of the communities, but it is wrong. You cannot build the capacity of the peoples. You can only exchange the knowledge. We need the Western knowledge as the Western knowledge need the traditional way of living of indigenous peoples. We are the guardian of the ecosystem. Indigenous peoples around the world protect 80% of the world's biodiversity. We do that only because we know how to live in harmony with our nature. So it is a lot of knowledge. How we can help the Western culture to understand living in harmony with the nature, and how the Western culture can help us to understand all the new technology, the science who can help us to sustain our life. So I think there are so many things to do together, but it can be together only if we are partners. There is no donors and recipients. There is no decision makers, and those are beneficiaries. So they will be only a partners on the equal way of sitting, and there will be only an exchange of the knowledge that can help us to build our world better. We have one planet, we have same air, we have same water, we have same needs of the food to eat. Even you can eat any steak or veggie, it is the same what we need. So we need to work together in collaborations, and that's all what we are offering as indigenous peoples. And that's have been very great to do that with you, Binata, and also with Mark and with many other folks that are believing on the indigenous people's way of living.
What inspires me most about Hindou is that she was able to speak to all of these groups because she had unique knowledge and data. That's how she got the right to speak to the key decision makers. So, what evidence do I need to fully understand the problems that I'm facing? And how can I build on that evidence by having multiple groups contribute and add to the evidence? It may seem painstakingly slow, yet it can be the fastest way to come to a collaborative solution. Thank you for joining us on Collaboration at the Edge.